We would like to remind everyone of the following before we start the webinar. Please avoid writing unnecessary comments in the comment section. Only relevant comments regarding the topic will be allowed. Questions are encouraged during the open forum after the lecture proper. Digital certificates will be sent through email upon the completion of the evaluation tools. Thank you.
Hello and a good afternoon to everyone. I'm Jerome and I would like to welcome you all to our webinar entitled Understand the Signs, Bridging Communication Gaps with the Deaf Community. Our aim is to be able to provide our viewers with knowledge and further understanding on how to effectively communicate with the deaf community. But before we start, I would like to remind everyone that a recorded version of this webinar will be available for future viewing. Now, I would like to call on Johan Dishon to introduce our first speaker.
Excuse me, Johan, you are on mute. Okay.
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to introduce our first speaker for this afternoon, Sir Raymond Manding. Sir Raymond Manding is the coordinator for the Deaf Advocacy Program at the Benilde School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies. He's a graduate of Benilde School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies and earned his master's in multimedia, the Multimedia University in Malaysia. He's the former president of the Philippine Federation of Deaf Youth Section and is now the vice president of the World Federation for the Deaf Regional Secretariat, Asia Youth Section. He has been invited to numerous conferences and meetings internationally, working on the resolution of deaf issues, particularly deaf advocacy, deaf access, and working with the deaf. We are also joined today by Ms. Nika Kamba, an FSL interpreter from the De La Salle College of Saint Benilde, School of Deaf Education and Applied Studies. She will be doing a sign and voice translation for Mr. Manding. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to our first speaker, Mr. Raymond Manding.
Hi everyone. So hello. My name is Raymond. This is my name sign. I'm the Deaf Advocacy Coordinator for CSBS DAS. And just to go back, why is this my name sign? That is because I'm chubby and because of my eyebrows. That's why it's my name sign. So I found that it was better if I just together with my signing so that we can just go on smoothly as possible. Sorry. So let me introduce my FSL interpreter. Her name is Veronica. This is her sign name. She will do voice interpreting for me. So hello everyone. So now I will that's why we're having this webinar because I think this was introduced to me last February and March. So I was invited to be a speaker for this topic. So that's why I'm here today. And that's why we're providing this webinar. I know a lot has happened since nag-start yung virus, but I hope everyone is safe. After my lecture, if you have any questions and if we have time, I can probably take your questions and answer them as much as I can. And now we'll start showing the deaf awareness orientation. So let's learn a bit about the alphabet. I hope some of you know about this. This is the basic way that we use to communicate in the deaf community. For the hearing people, you use alphabet to use speech to spell out the alphabet, but for us, for basic communication, we use finger spelling. So just short lang. All right, let's start. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, like this. O, P. So, kanina yung K pataas, P yun yung pababa. Next, Q, like this one. R, S, T, U, V, and this is the I love you sign. Okay. So if you want to learn more, after the lecture, we can probably send you more materials about this one. It's very important to learn the basic alphabet kasi if you have clients coming into the hospital, it's best if you know at least the basic alphabet that you can use it in finger spelling. So next, let's talk about deaf culture. What is deaf culture? So there are 3 points here. First, it's a unique way of life. Do you think deaf and hearing culture is the same? No, it's actually different. For the deaf, we lead a unique way of life. So in terms of ethics, in praying, religion, and family, we actually lead a unique way of life. So second, evolved from Filipino deaf. What that means is that, for example, in history, there are groups of deaf people. They pass the generation to generation. And so, like, for example, they have habits of going to McDo during Fridays. They meet as a group. Kita-kita sila. And then, nag-change yan and then nag-evolve yan. So, ngayon, mas marami na yung video conferencing, video calls, like, for example, Zoom meeting, mga Skype, sa Facebook. So, we use technology before, face-to-face yung pag-meet. Ngayon, with the use of technology. So, ganun yung ibig sabihin ng nag-evolve. So let me also share my experience. Yung hearing and deaf may different ways then of communicating. So for example, may different world yung hearing sa deaf. So pagka deaf to deaf yan, when we talk to each other, gusto namin pag-usapan yung mga mumo, ano yung mga culture. So may shared experiences are nagmamatch. Yung in terms of paggamit sa mga ilaw, may effect yan sa amin as compared to hearing people. So that's what it means by having shared experiences. In relation to that, yung deaf's nature, there are 5 here. So first, expressive. Expressive, anong ibig sabihin yan? We use our facial expressions in communication. Kaya nagkukwento kami about ghosts and stuff. We use facial expression to emphasize our communication. Sensitivity naman, next. We have feelings. Kunyari, yung mga family namin may problem, we can actually feel that. Pag merong nag-flicker na light somewhere, we are sensitive to that and we can look to that. Sa car naman, sa mga busina, we can also feel that. Next, blunt. For hearing people kasi may tendency na magpaligoy-ligoy, pasikot-sikot, pero sa deaf, we just tell it straight. So for example, kami bumili ng cake. Pag hearing people, sasabihin, hindi pa masabi, parang hindi makapag-comment ng diretso. Pero sa deaf, pag nakita namin cake, ano pa yan, ang pangit, di maganda, dapat palitan. Basta diretso namin nasasabi yung comments namin about doon sa mga bagay na yan. Alright, so next naman, we cope by guessing sometimes. Sometimes for the hearing, isang beses lang verbal instruction, okay na. Pero sometimes sa deaf, we have to verify and to clarify it so that we are sure that we're getting the correct information. So those are differences again for the deaf and hearing. Next naman, we're very visual. Mas maganda sa amin yung bright spaces. Hindi beneficial sa amin yung dark, kunyari inside the room. So for example, in terms of seating arrangement, for hearing people, okay lang yung row arrangement kasi you can hear people at your back. Pero sa amin, mas beneficial yung U-shape arrangement so that we can see each other all at the same time. So for example, in terms of interpreter naman, hindi maganda sa amin makakita ng interpreter na yung suot niya very glaring kasi masakit sa mata. So another example, sa sinihan or sa movie house, yung mga hearing, okay lang, kain popcorn, naririnig niyo pa rin yung sinasabi ng kausap niyo, pero sa deaf, anong gagawin? Antay-liwanag yung screen. O di kaya yung cellphone, yung torch, bubuksan para lang makapag-checkahan doon sa katabi sa sinihan. Okay, next. Ito nga, just to prove yung point na very visual, we utilize our eyes in terms of driving. Mas maganda sa amin yung mas malaki yung rear view mirror para mas makita. Kasi sa hearing, you use regular sized rear view mirror. Sa amin, mas malaki, mas maganda. Same din yan sa motor. We use the mirrors there. Yun nga yung kanina, yung about sa sensitivity. Pagka may bumisina, we're actually aware about that. We can go to the side all at once. Kapag may emergency, makikita din namin yung ambulance dun sa likod, sa salamin, through the mirrors, and we can go to the side. So next, how do we call the attention of a deaf person? So kung yung deaf ang nasa unahan mo at hearing ka, syempre kahit anong sigaw mo, hindi naman niya maririnig, or you don't do this also, it's not respectful, it's not proper. So best just tap on the shoulder, so the deaf person knows that he or she is being called. It's also best if you wave your hands kung medyo malayo yung person. Of course, pag sumigaw ka, hindi ka naman niya maririnig. But if you wave your hands and you point to the person, then he or she knows that he's being called. Sa games naman, kaya sa basketball, if you use your whistle, syempre, hindi naman maririnig ng deaf. It's best if you can use white handkerchief to signal para maalam ng deaf kung ano yung violation or kung ano yung call. For the hearing kasi, it's easy to call out your names or to call out everyone at once. Pero for us deaf, sometimes we use the light source. For example, in a classroom, syempre sobrang daming deaf. We just flicker the lights on and off para everyone would look to the light source. Kasi syempre yung knocking on doors wouldn't work also. So kung sa labas may switch doon and you can turn the switch on and off, it's okay. You can also use the torch of your cell phone to call someone from afar. And these are easy ways to do so. So sa floor naman, if you stomp on the floor, we can actually feel the vibration. So similarly to a chair, yung konting light tap lang so that the deaf person knows that he or she is being called kasi we can feel the vibration. So both of these are works. So I hope you can remember these things on how to call the attention of the deaf person. Okay, so next. If you still don't know how to sign or how to communicate with the deaf person, especially, for example, in hospitals, in clinics, and you are faced with a deaf person, so what do? You can communicate by writing. It's best if you have a pen and paper on hand and you can write, or you can also utilize a whiteboard and write on there so that you can communicate with the deaf person. What's important is that you communicate using basic English kasi dito sa Philippines maraming graduate ng elementary pero college or high school very few lang kasi they stop schooling early on. So it's best if you just use basic English to communicate. Next, you can use telecommunication devices like cell phones, chat, typing on computers, or sending messages. So those work as well. Third naman, you can use your body movements, gestures. You can use there are simple gestures for you, like for example, sleep, kain, pawis, mabaho. So you can use those simple gestures. For example, someone is feeling hot, may fever, or may cough. You can see these gestures are easily understandable naman. So those are simple ways for you to communicate. So other ideas we have, if you don't understand or if you don't understand the communication happening, you can actually use a visual chart where the deaf person can point to the body parts. You can also use calendars to point on the times and dates for history, when the sickness started, and you can take note of that. also schedule ng medication, kung kailan iti-take. You can use the calendar for that to show it visually. So mas maganda rin may visual support. Like for example, this one, there's a rating scale, right? So ito yung very painful. So yung kung ano yung hurtful sa kanila, kung ano yung masakit sa kanila, kunyari, minsan sa facial expression din yan nakita. Kung hindi masyado masakit o masakit. Pero if you use this scale, madali sa kanilang i-point out saan talaga yung nararamdaman nila at the moment. You can also use pictures for medicines. For example, hindi niya alam yun or hindi siya familiar doon, you can actually show them a picture of what it looks like or what the packaging looks like so that para ma-lessen yung miscommunication and mas magaintindihan. So it helps them really take note of the visual cues that you will show them. So last naman is very important na, for example, ngayon maraming naka-face mask, syempre because of what happened, the virus and all. So we can actually show pictures or icons that would assist the deaf person to just point out kung ano man yung needs nila. For example, in China, there was a good idea there that they use these icons so that the patient can just point to whatever he or she needs. So I hope you've learned these things. So again, just to write, use gestures, use pictures in order to illustrate to the deaf people on what to do. So I hope in the future you would be more familiar on how to use these things or tools. So ito naman yung mga terms that we call deaf people. Sorry, let me go back. The deaf community has a right that they don't want to accept this term. So kasi deaf dump, kasi in history, this was very popular. So ibig sabihin ba nito, yung deaf tanga or yung deaf bobo? Parang the deaf doesn't really agree because deaf people can be smart. So the word itself is not really proper. Next naman, deaf mute. Ibig sabihin, may volume kami na pwedeng zero yung volume. Pag umiiyak kami, pag may masakit sa amin, walang sound yon. Hindi kami nakakasigaw. No, that's not true. But we have voices. We can laugh. When we sign, sometimes we have voices. Yung pipe naman, kasi in our language, yan yung common na term. Kasi ang English na mute, diba? So in Tagalog, pipe, yun yung nakasanayan. Especially in Manila, very familiar yung parang pipe lagi yung tinatawag. That's the equivalent of mute. So we don't use that. Yung last naman, hearing impaired. Ito medyo popular sa hospital, sa medical community. So the deaf community doesn't really agree kasi masyadong focus sa autism or dun sa parang brokenness o sa impairment ng aming pandinig. So that's not politically correct either. So these three terms, I hope you change your perspectives and use the right terms instead. So I'll show you what those terms are. So this one, deaf with a small d, ibig sabihin yan general hearing loss. So you can use that, that's okay. It doesn't mean that this person knows sign language or subscribe to the identity. Pero wag na natin gamitin yung mga deaf dump or yung mga kaninang sinabi. Let's just focus on using the word deaf with a small d. So hard of hearing naman, ang ibig sabihin yan, these people live in the hearing world as well as the deaf world. They also know sign language. They also know the culture. So we call them hard of hearing. Kasi sometimes they can still sign, but they can still hear a bit of sound. They can still talk sometimes. So yung last naman, yung deaf with the big D. What does that mean? So they know the culture, the identity, the language, all of this. That's why similarly, we're proud to be Filipinos. It's the same, we're proud to be deaf. Yung bingi naman, so kanina nga going back, yung pipe, that's not the right term. The right term actually is bingi in Tagalog. So we use that. Bingi or deaf with the big D. So I hope you can remember these terms, yung mga words na dapat gamitin that are acceptable for the deaf community. And I hope you can also inform everyone, your friends and others about this one. So next, yung FSL, ano bang ibig sabihin yan? FSL is the natural language of communication used by the deaf community, by the Filipino deaf community. Kasi for hearing, you use Tagalog or the Filipino language, right? For us deaf, we use FSL, so Filipino Sign Language. Next naman, ano ba yung ginagawa ng FSL? So it's visual and manual communication, facial expression that we use in our communication. So now, just a question, is FSL and ASL the same? Is it Filipino Sign Language and American Sign Language the same? You can sign true or false in 3, 2, 1. Okay, so here's the answer. The answer is false. Why? So, according to PDRC, this is the Philippine Deaf Research Center by Dr. Liza Martinez. She's a researcher. And she found out that in terms of structures, meron actually differences from FSL and ASL. So as the structures of phonology, morphology, syntax, and discourse, FSL and ASL is quite different. So some of it are the same, pero much of it is also different. Magkaiba din kasi yung culture ng Amerika sa Philippines. So in history, yes, they taught us sign language, pero later on it evolved na to our own. So that's why we can be able to call it FSL now. So for example, dun lang sa alphabet, sa US, G is like this. So dito naman sa Philippines, G is like this. So as you can see, these are different. Different hand signs and different form of hands. So kanyari naman yung grandfather, lolo, or lola. So sa US ganito, in the Philippines, it's like this. So, sa US and then Philippines. US, yeah. So, sa grandmother naman, ganito siya. US, Philippines. And as you can see, these are also different. Yung similar na iba, pwede, mama, papa, yeah, those are similar. Kasi nga, we are still influenced by them. Pero yun nga, as you can see dun sa lolo and lola, nagkaiba na siya. So next question, ASL, is it equivalent to written English? FSL, is it equivalent to spoken Tagalog or written Tagalog? So true or false? 3, 2, 1, okay, here's the answer. False. So why? Right. So again, according to PDRC, it has nothing to do with written language. The structure is different. The written language and the sign language has a different structure. So yung spoken English and sign language is completely different to each other. Kasi you have to follow the visual concept. Hindi ibig sabihin na related sila, pero you have to translate depending on the context and the concept. So we call it being bilingual, that we know how to write and sign at the same time. So ngayon naman, the FSL law has been approved by the President last October 30, 2018. So we're very happy about this one. Ano yung purpose ng law na to? It's for government transactions for the Filipino deaf to benefit. So kunyari sa education, sa law, sa health, interpreter access, sa TV, sa INSET, sa courts, yan. So and other government transactions. This was established by the Philippine Federation for the Deaf and supported by the deaf community. So that's why finally na-approve na siya and became a law. Unfortunately, yung IRR is still in process. We're still working on it. But it's really good that finally we can have access, especially at this time of the pandemic. Kunyari sa virus in terms of access. So how do we benefit from that access? Kunyari sa mga TV news stations. We have an access team for the virus. These are comprised of advocates and volunteers. So this one, ito yung name ng group. PFD and other organizations, they all went together for the advocacy in order to serve the Filipino deaf, informing them of this updates on the virus. So I think Ms. Noemi is actually part of this group. She's one of the founders of this group, and she also supports us in terms of sign language and in terms of access. So kung walang access, syempre, anong gagawin ng deaf? Hindi alam pa na kailangan pala mag-mask, na may virus pala. Syempre, it would cause panic. But because of this access, we are really grateful. So we are updated kung ano yung nangyayari from sa government sa Philippines, na nagiging updated kami kung ano yung nangyayari. We also have the healthcare access team. Miss Noemi is also founder of this group. So, ang nangyayari, if deaf people become sick, of course, they cannot go to the doctor kasi walang interpreter. So, they have a system that allows for them to have virtual interpreters through this Facebook page. So, yun nga yung FSLO. Again, we're very happy na sa GMA, sa ABS, and other networks. Dati yung government, wala yan, pero ngayon they also put an inset na rin sa channel, sa government TV news station. We have interpreters group supporting the Filipino deaf. They are called the Philippine National Association of Sign Language Interpreters, or PNASLI. So I hope you can also support us in this cause. You can also support the deaf communities in hospitals in terms of access for the deaf, na you would know what to do. Okay, so now we just heard kasi medyo nagiging viral na siya na people are mocking sign language na akala nila may nagti-TikTok dun sa TV and they are laughing about it and posting about it. That's not respectful to the deaf community. It's very important kasi for access, tapos minamock nila yan. Pero later, baka mamaya yung news station maisip na, tanggalin na natin kasi tinatawanan ng mga tao. So I hope we can avoid this and we can understand that this is not true. Hindi yan nagti-TikTok. And I hope we can spread the awareness to everyone as well. Now, teasing and mocking sign language is actually against the law, and you should be careful kung may makita kayo sa Facebook. I hope you can also warn them na be respectful to the deaf community kasi nga interpreter access is very difficult for us. We're trying to advocate for that really. So I hope you can help us. Other information, in case na may mangyari sa hospitals and in case a deaf person will be accompanied by an interpreter, what do we do? So yun nga, we do have the healthcare access for COVID-19. We just connect through that and there will be interpreters available to support, like Ms. Noemi. And ito naman, United Nations Conventions on the Rights of Persons with Disability. This is from the UN. Specifically, we have Article 9, which promotes for accessibility. For example, sa news, sa TV, mas maganda kung may access for FSL interpreters para may access yung deaf community to that. So, the World Federation of the Deaf also agrees on that and supports the UN para ma-advocate siya internationally na to use sign language. So just to thank our interpreters, frontliners, we consider them as our frontliners because we really thank them for their service in times of need. So these are our interpreters. So we're almost done. Just a few more. We'll just learn a bit of sign language, okay? Okay, so the first one is hi. Okay, beside that, hello. This is hello. Okay, next. So, good morning. Good morning. Next, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good evening. Next. Good evening. So as you can see, the hands are moving this way, right? Because it follows the direction of the sun. So pataas, palubog, hanggang sa lumubog na siya ng tuluyan. So that's why morning, afternoon, and evening. Okay? So second, in relation to the medical field, here are some signs for you. So first, medicine. Medicine. Like this. Second, sick. Or like that, fever, sick. Next, hospital, hospital. emergency. Using the e-hand, that's my face, of course, that signifies emergency is happening. Pain, so depending on the position, on where is it the pain is located, so pain dito, or dito. Yeah, so wherever the pain is located. Next, feel. Dun sa my heart, no? Feel. So last one, doctor. Yeah, so stethoscope and or here, doctor. Patient is a letter P, similar to hospital. Nurse is like this. Dentist, pwedeng ganyan. Right, are here. Okay, next. Midwife. Again, doctor, patient, nurse, dentist, midwife. Okay, so I'm so sorry na very limited yung frame. I hope we can find more signs later on. So now let me introduce our team. Ngayon kasi may nangyari na COVID, but we do have FSL classes available for those who are interested. We have 3 levels. First, second, and third. Yung una medyo basic. Pangalawa, may mga konting signs na tinuturo, a few signs. Tapos yung pangatlo, mas maraming signs. This would help you improve in communicating with the deaf. So I hope you can also inform everyone who's interested. So now, if you don't have time, we also have an app that you can download. It's called FSL Buddy, where you can learn signs. There are around 200 words inside the app. Okay, so now, to support yung FSL, we call for donations as well. We call it Sign for Signs. This one is to support the SDS deaf community. So for the students, yung nagsistay sa dorm, na-trap sila sa dorm for, we have 8 students na nagsistay pa sa dorm and all. Next naman for volunteers. Next for part-time faculties na walang teaching load, so we can also support them. So in order to donate, what can we do? There are different packages for the donation. So there's 350, 550. It is equivalent to a 3-day food pack to be given to those in need. Tapos yung 1,000 naman, this can be provided dun sa mga students na hindi makapag travel going home. So all of this will help them. So if you feel like you want to donate, please do so. Yeah, so how we can through UCPB or just look at the details here. We can also do that through GCash. So if you can also find more information on Facebook. We do have a form that you can fill up once you're finished donating, and we will give you FSL kits for that. So, marami din mga materials na makikita doon sa FSL kit na yan. So, I hope we can encourage you to donate. Next, we also would like to invite you to follow us on Facebook. Meron dyan mga news, mga events related to the deaf community. If you have any questions, you can chat us or send a message through these numbers or through these contact details, and you can also text us. If we have time, we can probably video chat or chat with each other. So thank you so much.
Our second speaker is Miss Noemi Pamentu Anhara. She's marketing psychology and communications consultant for over 20 years, leading cross-functional teams in social marketing, communications, education, and nonprofit management. Using a multidisciplinary approach, she's co-author of Full Access, the practical guide to TV news interpreting, creating rainbows, an activity toolkit for children under traumatizing circumstances, and co-contributor to the abstract After Haiyan, documenting deaf narratives through film in post-typhoon Tacloban, Philippines, published by the American Public Health Association. She's a co-founder of Development and Accessibility Fund for the Deaf, Colisco Waldorf School, Fund Philippines, and tulaysenyas.com. Ms. Hara is currently the media team head of the Filipino Sign Language Access Team for COVID-19, an alliance that uses technology to break barriers in information, healthcare, and community services for the deaf community. Now, let us watch the abstract After Haiyan, documenting deaf narratives through film in post-typhoon Tacloban, Philippines.
If there are warnings, usually they use the voice. They use the what do you call this?
The community warnings, not
alarms or sirens, but the deaf couldn't hear it.
It's typical here in Tacloban to have storm half of the year, but they don't know how grave the situation is.
Never mind the typhoon, even the basic services that they should be given, they're not.
The basic needs of the work that they should have,
employment, the education, the very basic, it's not there.
It was actually my first time to handle a deaf patient, and it was more of an eye-opening for me because I could hardly communicate, and it was like I have very limited knowledge in terms of sign language, in terms of communicating with them. What I did was to write. At first, I was thinking that they talk like us in vernacular language or our native language here, and it was even you who taught me that they talk in English. So it's like, oh my God, I don't know those things. for me to give the attention that they deserve, I should know basically how to communicate, and that is through sign language. And that is one thing I realized during that time, that these people should be given medical attention regardless of their disability.
Health practitioners should be trained at least to how to communicate or how to deal with deaf patients.
I hope it could be integrated in the training of health workers so that people like Niola would have access to health care. How I met Patrick is the psychosocial intervention workshops after Typhoon Yolanda. The feeling was like you're in a wake, but times 100, because there were around 100 people and all of them have lost somebody. And then, but I had to sign for the 2 deaf people who were there. They might not even be aware that they have trauma, because for them, they're not even used to having people ask them how they feel.
And usually the psychological first aid is being provided by the DOH. Are they well trained of how to handle the PWD? That's the challenge there. It's okay with the food, that's so basic, but releasing the pent-up emotions with them, I think it's not yet being implemented to them.
Usually, the relief or the services given are based in barangays or the city hall. So just that fact excludes persons with disabilities.
During that disaster operation, we have this problem in terms of having this relief not being received by our persons with disabilities, because most of the time these are being managed by the barangay people, the barangay council.
You can't find deaf people per barangay. You find them in organizations, in churches, because there's an interpreter in church, or in organizations like with Patrick's group.
Adamson University. She had also undergone training in Filipino Sign Language, levels 1 to 3, in the Salle College of Saint Benilde, Manila. She has worked in various fields of pharmacy practice, such as community pharmacy and pharmaceutical manufacturing, before joining the academe in 2010. She is currently a faculty member at Adamson University College of Pharmacy and Graduate School and a member of the Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. She has conducted and co-researched several studies in that community. She is an ally of the deaf community and an advocate for the improvement of access to healthcare for the deaf and hard of hearing. Now, without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Catublas.
Good day to everyone. The main objective of this lecture is to present to you the different ways of communicating with deaf and hard of hearing people, with emphasis in providing medication related instructions to deaf patients as well as providing patient care in the clinical setting. But before that, let me give you a little introduction about deafness, hard of hearing, and the prevalence of hearing loss. We define deafness as the complete loss of the ability to hear from one or both ears. This is called the profound hearing impairment. There are several levels depending on the detection of sounds. It can be slight or mild, moderate, severe, and profound. Hard of hearing, on the other hand, is a term used by audiologists to identify those individuals who exhibit a slight to moderate hearing loss. And HOH individual may benefit from the use of different amplification forms such as hearing aids and assistive listening devices. According to WHO, there are around 466 million people with disabling hearing loss, and by the year 2050, it is estimated that over 900 million people will be affected. In the Philippines, the projected number is more than a million. Now, what are the effects of sensory deprivation of hearing? It can range from serious educational handicap, low literacy level, unemployment, low self-worth, and lower health literacy and poor health. These two, the last two here, are our main concern as a healthcare provider. So when we say low health literacy, this refers to either inability to listen and communicate medication information. When we're talking about oral literacy, inability to read and understand written information, we call that print literacy, or inability to understand numbers associated with dosage, for example, dosage of medicine, directions, quantity of medications, and refill. And we call that numeracy or numerical literacy. Given those serious health consequences among deaf and hard of hearing people, how can we help improve the provision of healthcare? So, since 1991, the Filipino deaf community has been using and promoting the use of Filipino Sign Language in the country. And after 2 decades of lobbying, last October 30, 2018, President Rodrigo Duterte already signed the FSL law or RA 11106. And I personally would want to highlight this provision in the law that is very relevant to our topic today and in the healthcare system. The Section 8 states that hospitals and all health facilities shall take steps to ensure access of Filipino deaf to health services, and that includes the free provision of FSL interpreter and accessible material upon request of deaf patients. So with that, materials that will aid in educating all service sectors in communicating with deaf people should be made available. So I will be providing you some example of these materials that we may use in training on the latter part of my presentation. So we will now proceed with the ways of communicating important information to deaf and hard of hearing people. The first is the use of sign language. So this is built from visual units. It has no written system and are purely driven by grammatical devices in a non-manual signs of face and body. This is a true language at par with spoken languages. While spoken language are based on classes of sounds, sign languages are built from visual units. in the Philippines, we have the Filipino Sign Language as the official medium of instruction and communication to be used in all transactions involving deaf people. For me, this is one of the most effective. If a person is trained in FSL, the exchange of information between hearing and deaf is clearer. The second one is finger spelling, also known as dactylology. This is the representation of the letters of a writing system and sometimes numerical system using only the hands. There are different hand shapes representing each letter in the alphabet. In finger spelling, letters are formed one after another to spell out a word. Finger spelling can be comprehended visually or tactually. Tracing the shape of letters in the air, like when you are executing the sign of letter Z, that's the simplest visual form of finger spelling. It's hard and frustrating, that's the limitation. Finger spelling is hard and frustrating to the part of deaf and hearing, especially if long words or sentences is being conveyed. Next is oral communication. So this is done through speaking, listening, and speech reading without the use of sign language. Again, in using this technique, we have several factors to consider that can influence the comprehension of deaf person with the spoken messages. Speech reading, for instance, is useful if the deaf has postlingual deafness. So when we say postlingual deafness, the person have acquired spoken language before their hearing was diminished. Because it's very hard, imagine a deaf person could not understand the meaning of spoken language if he or she is unable to hear or encounter that word before. Another consideration in speech reading or lip reading is that many spoken languages looks the same in our mouth when spoken. In fact, more than 70% of words we speak have the same shape in our mouth and very hard to distinguish. Next is the use of simultaneous communication. So this is a mode of communication employing sign language and spoken words simultaneously. And then we have total communication. So this is done through any and all means that were mentioned. It includes, but not limited to, speech reading or lip reading, can be the use of sign language, finger spelling, pantomime, postural and gestural communication, the use of visual cards, and writing. For us, healthcare providers, we need to find a way to convey important messages to our patients, not only to deaf people, even to other patients with special needs. So here are the tips when communicating with deaf person in one-to-one situation. First is to get the deaf person's attention. There are several ways to do this. A gentle tap on the shoulder can get the attention. If beyond reach or the person is far from you, a wave in the air until eye contact is established. If it's in a room setting, switching lights on and off can also catch attention. Next is key the deaf person into the topic of discussion. So they must be aware of the subject matter to be discussed in order to pick up words that can help them follow the conversation. This is particularly important if the deaf person will do speech reading. Next, speak slowly and clearly. Do not shout, exaggerate, or overpronounce, because exaggeration can distort your lip movements, making speech reading more difficult. So we try to enunciate each word without force or tension. We also make use of simpler words in shorter sentences, which is easier to understand as compared to when we are using long and ambiguous sentences. Next is look directly at the deaf person when speaking. So we have to avoid turning away from the receiver or the deaf person and doing other things that can distract the person. Say, you are speaking or talking to the deaf person while operating your computers or using a gadget or pulling something or a file from your drawer. that could be distracting to the person trying to understand the message you are conveying. So we also have to maintain eye contact with the deaf person. Repeat, then try to rephrase a thought if there is a problem in understanding rather than repeating the same words again. So we have to rephrase it. We use simpler words instead of repeating that ambiguous or a sentence that is hard for them to understand. And then do not hesitate to communicate by writing if it is necessary, because there are some lip movement, especially when you are trying to do speech reading. There are some lip movements or combination that are difficult to speech read. So we have to remember that getting the message across is more important than the medium that we use. Next is use appropriate nonverbal cues such as postural, gestural, and facial expression to supplement communication. Gestures can perform many functions in communication, such as regulating the flow and rhythm of interaction, maintaining the attention, and adding emphasis to our content. A lively speaker is always more interesting to watch. And then use open-ended questions that must be answered by more than yes or a no. So refrain from assuming that the deaf person have understood the message entirely simply because he or she nodded. So we have to ensure that accurate information has been conveyed by getting a coherent response to your question. We have here more tips for ensuring proper communication with deaf and hard of hearing person. Asking the deaf or hard of hearing person what will be of help in the communication process. So here we are starting to build rapport, and then we're trying to get information what will be the medium of communication. Remain within 3 to 5 feet from the person because it's important that the deaf person is seeing your whole gestures and posture when communicating. When using visual aids, we give the person the time to look at the aid before attempting to speech read. If more than one person is engaged in the conversation, we identify or make reference of who is about to speak before he or she begins. So here we want to make sure that only one person will talk or will give the information at a time. If you know basic signs, do not be afraid to use them. I think this is also important. Deaf person, HOH would really appreciate if you will try to communicate with them using even your basic knowledge on sign language. They will really appreciate it. When using an interpreter, speak directly to the person. The interpreter will respond in the first person. So even if the deaf person is accompanied by a hearing interpreter, you always talk eye to eye with the deaf person. Rely on writing if you have reached a communication impasse, meaning there's no other way or no other medium, and you have already exhausted other means. You can rely on writing. Now that you are aware of the different ways of communicating with deaf people, let me now present to you some materials I produce as product of my research that you can use in training and learning effective communication with deaf people. These materials are developed with the help of people also advocating for improvement of healthcare access for the deaf community. You have watched the video after Haiyan, and so there is a glaring need of the Filipino deaf community for the improved access to healthcare. And that video is also one of the inspirations why I pursued to producing these materials. So this is the title of my research, and allow me now to give you an overview of the training materials. The materials are of two types. We have here the illustrative guidebook, and then also complementary to the guidebook is an FSL instructional video. So the content of the training materials and the instructional video is a result of the qualitative data analysis I gathered from different groups of respondents whom I consulted. So there are medical doctors, deaf leaders and organizations, and pharmacists in the academe. Since I am a pharmacist and my focus is on the medication-related instruction, especially when we are giving patient counseling. So these are the topics that you may find in the illustrative guidebook. So there would be information about the deaf culture, nature of deafness, etiology of hearing loss, grades of hearing impairment, the myths and misconceptions about deaf people, learning the basics of deaf communication, the different communication barriers, what are the information being provided during patient counseling services, the different modalities in communicating with deaf and HOH, some visual facilitation, and the use of infographics in the patient counseling. I will be giving you at the end of my discussion the site where you can access the materials for free. Also part of the guidebook are some infographics. If there would be limitation in the use of other means of communication, such as limitation in the use of sign language on the part of the healthcare provider can use pictures and other visual representations in conveying messages. By the way, to ensure the appropriateness and suitability of these infographics included in the guidebook, suitability to the target audience who are deaf people and HOH, these infographics are done collaboratively with a deaf graphic artist. So my knowledge as a pharmacist and the expertise of the deaf artist in creating images were integrated. So this is to create images that are appropriate to the level of understanding of the deaf person while ensuring the accuracy of the conveyed messages. So we have here infographics on the dosage form, timing and frequency of drug administration, side effects associated with the use of drugs. And there are also parts of abbreviation acronyms that we use in prescribing, and then the definition of terms. As mentioned, part of the training materials produced is the instructional video on Filipino Sign Language. So this aims to provide basic knowledge on sign language to assist healthcare professionals in communicating with deaf and hard of hearing patients. I will not be showing you the entire video in the interest of time because it lasts for more than 13 minutes, but I will be giving you the site where you can access the video. So the video was developed with the assistance of sign language experts to ensure the accuracy of signs demonstrated by the deaf artists in the video. Note also that some of the signs here, particularly the technical medical signs, still needs further validation since standard signs for these terms are not yet developed. So there are two parts for the instructional video. So allow me just to scroll it. First part is the basic Filipino Sign Language used in conversations. So we have here the alphabet signs, and then we also have the number signs, the time signs, WH questions, the basic color signs, greetings and common conversational phrases, and then we also have different people, healthcare providers as part of the basic FSL use in conversation. The part 2 is more focused on common medication instructions. So we have here the timing and frequency of drug administration. We also have here the list of side effects, some common side effects associated with the use of drugs. So these are the portion on the side effects of drugs and instructions related to the use of medicine. So that's the whole video. But again, you can access this. Later on, I'll give you the site. Let me now share with you some of the conclusions derived from this project and also some recommendation for the continuity and improvement for researchers like you if you want to engage in this type of project in the future. First is communication barrier thus exists and affecting provision of health-related information to deaf patients. Deaf people are receiving less than the best medical care because of this barrier. So having said that, training of healthcare providers is strongly recommended. It's good now that there are trainings available in the healthcare setting. But I think it's better if we can now consider incorporating this training in deaf communication across health-related programs, even in the undergrad. And specialized training materials should be then made available for a particular program with focus on the type of healthcare provided. Like example, in the case of pharmacy, our focus is on medication-related instructions, patient counseling, drug dispensing, and some clinical aspects as well. So maybe in the future, probably we can see materials being produced from the nursing profession, more on clinical setting, patient care. But let me just reiterate, when you do this type of materials, you work collaboratively with deaf community. You always seek for their assistance in doing the project. They are more than willing to help you because they know exactly the need of the deaf community. And like what they are always saying, nothing about us without us. So you make sure that every step of the process, you involve them. As promised, these are now the sites where you can access the materials for free. Both the guidebook and the instructional video is available in our website, tulaysenyas.com. It is created by a group of advocates for inclusive information dissemination that caters to deaf and hard of hearing members of the community. The video was also shared in YouTube and also by Asia Society Philippines on Facebook. Now, if you would want to know more on the trainings, programs available, FSL training program, we can also ask later on Sir Raymond for this information. So, thank you very much for your attention, and I hope that this forum improve your knowledge in communicating with deaf people.
Yeah, all right. So jumping off from the presentations, from the sharing of Raymond and Hazel. So just to put things together, actually, this the After High End film was, I think, a catalyst that inspired people like Dr. Hazel to make the research project. And syempre, we all wish that like we learn from our mistakes or from the problems of the past. So hopefully we improve. And these are the recommendations that were given after the film. So as a backgrounder, the film kasi After Hayan was funded by a grant from the Stanford School of Medicine. So just to give you a backgrounder about that, the filming group, no, so there's this the director of After Hayan was a medical student of Stanford School of Medicine, and prior to that he was a film graduate of Yale University. So while in medical school they have grants where you can, kasi in Stanford, well, I think in Ivy League, in other universities, no, the program that they have for college students is that hindi tulad dito na aral-aral, test, exam, pass the boards. What they're encouraged to do is to work on actual projects, real life projects, so that they merge academics with in solving real life problems. So for director Mike Nadelman, he went to the Philippines after Typhoon Haiyan or Typhoon Yolanda, and they were looking for groups of people who were left behind, who were overlooked by disaster relief responders, and they were referred to me by a partner institution. So ako naman, parang I was just saying na I think that at that time, so I went with a group who provided psychosocial support in Leyte, and I said, I found this deaf community there, and it seems to me that they were overlooked by responders. Kasi nga parang iniisip like kung hindi malalim yung alam mo about them, you'd just say na, yeah, oo, natulungan namin sila, like binigyan namin sila ng relief goods. That's it. So for me mababaw 'yon, especially if you're an organization or institution that really focuses on persons with disabilities. If your organization or your institution or even you as a person have been mandated to focus on providing services for persons with disabilities, tapos ang lakaya mo lang ibigay sa kanila, especially during a disaster situation, is a box of relief goods, I'd say mababaw yung response mo, because anybody, even without specialized knowledge, anybody, kahit ikaw as an individual, you can do relief operations. You can donate a box of relief goods. But during a disaster situation, you'd expect more from, especially if you're funded, to specifically cater to the needs of persons with disabilities. So that's what disappointed me there when I was there, when I went to Leyte, because I'd always ask, I'd always ask responders, anong do you cater to deaf people? Kasi alam ko, I know the statistics in Leyte Samar, mataas yung occurrence of deafness there for different reasons, for poverty, lack of access to healthcare, again, yung ganun and then they were not being served. So it was disappointing for me. Actually, ako yung nag-insist, as in I went out of my way to ask the group I was with na please accept kahit 2 deaf leaders to join our psychosocial intervention workshops. Kahit kami na magbayad, kahit kami gumawa ng paraan, just so meron lang mag-participate. And I went home from that activity disappointed talaga, kasi parang I really felt na walang nangyayari to provide help for them. And that was so a few months after, that's when I met the After Hayan film group, and that's what the feedback I gave to them. And so they were there. Supposedly hindi pa nila focus yung deaf community then, but then when they tried to really do research and look at the community, nakita nila that the deaf community was left behind. And so they even had to, parang they asked me kasi may lack, isang ano pa dun is the lack of access to communication. They couldn't find an interpreter. So I said, sige, I'll help you. Just find a way to bring me to Tacloban. So they brought me there and I helped them with filming and interviewing. So after that, so with the film, I think I sent to one of you a copy of the abstract. So syempre, it was a funded project. They had an abstract which was accepted by the American Public Health Association and it was published during one of their conferences. So these are the recommendations which we learned from that event. So in general, next slide, please. So we can use multimedia for research, advocacy, and education. So in terms of research, ganun nga yung ginawa nung film group from Stanford School of Medicine. They made the research, used their skills, combined medicine and skills in filming to learn about this group left behind by mainstream responders. And then for advocacy, we now use the film to educate healthcare workers and frontliners about the need to serve the deaf community. And then for education, like what we're doing now, we're educating a group like you on what you can do to bridge that gap in the healthcare service. Next slide, please. And then one size fits all approach to aid in healthcare is not effective. So as you've seen, diba, yun na nga that was the cause of my frustration when I went to Tacloban, when I went to Leyte, after Typhoon Yolanda. It's not effective kasi there are different needs of different people eh. Yeah, merong parang basic package or basic program. But then ang makikita mo talaga, what you can see there is if you're a specialized group or if you're a healthcare worker and that situation arrives and you don't know how to respond to the needs of, let's say, the deaf community, it means dun sa planning stage pa lang, you did not even think of them. Because if you thought of them in the planning stage, you'd equip yourself and be ready when that situation comes. So that one size fits all that we're using is not effective. I mean, kahit naman sa love life, hindi effective yung one size fits all eh. Yung boyfriend mo ba, magiging type ng isa para maging boyfriend niya? Di ba hindi? So why are we doing that when it comes to healthcare and aid? I mean, it's as simple as that. So next slide, please. So as Raymond explained earlier and as Dr. Hazel also explained, deaf people belong to a linguistic and cultural group with unique needs and much to offer. Hindi sila yung parang perspective na kawawa at a losing end, walang alam. There's actually, if you give them the opportunity to be educated, if you give them an opportunity to contribute, they can contribute a lot because we just saw earlier when Raymond was sharing, he's really a brilliant person, di ba? He has a lot to offer and they can really teach us a lot and we can learn from them. So, next slide. So specifically, the recommendations that we had from that experience is to continue after Hayan screening and focus on medical training and cultural competency workshops of health workers and social workers. Kasi sila yung frontliners or first responders there eh. So they really have to be equipped. Hindi siya pwedeng siguro at the start, which some med schools are doing now, parang it's an elective providing deaf awareness and FSL workshops. But I hope eventually it becomes part of the program. In other countries, it's how it's done. Even like I have friends who work in insurance industry in the US. Requirements sa kanila that they know how to sign. So next slide, please. So because of that, so since these were the recommendations in 2016, 2015, let's see 4 or 5 years after, ano na yung mga nagawa. So because of that, we have screened after Hayan for more than 1,000 people. So like we've done this for UST College of Medicine and Surgery, for like Adamson College of Pharmacy, for nonprofit organizations, as far as Cebu and Davao. There have been screenings of this, and also it became a finalist for the Kisumbing Escandor Film Festival for Health, one sorority in UP College of Medicine, and it's now part of their traveling library that educates schools about mental health. Next, please. So the next recommendation is to develop a visual sheet for prescribed medication. So one output of that, it's still on the pilot stage. Or some deaf artists. The first prototype was made by one of our co-founders in Deaf, and in partnership with Manila Doctors Hospital, we created a visual prescription sheet like this one. So this idea came about after Hayan. Manila Doctors Hospital created a medical and surgical mission in Leyte, specifically for persons with disabilities. And as I was interpreting, syempre, like, I advised the doctors na, Doc, ano nyo po, i-drawing nyo kung ano yung 3 times a day, 2 times a day, ganyan. So, dun sa boxes of the prescriptions, they were drawing, kunyari, teaspoon, ganyan, 3, tapos may araw or gabi, ganyan. So, nasa boxes. And actually, making it visual did not only benefit the deaf community, but also the people na meron kayong communication barrier. Kasi like, syempre, medical mission yun, yung mga pupunta, yung mahirap or hindi kaya magbayad sa doktor. So, like, merong patient, may lola, di ba? Waray yung salita niya. So, yung doktor naman, galing Manila. Si lola, waray ng waray. Si doktor, sinasabi, Nay, sorry po, English lang or Tagalog, English lang or Tagalog. So, may communication barrier. But then, with that visual prescription, naintindihan kahit sino eh. Di ba, 3 kutsara, sa umaga lang, pag breakfast, o kaya sa gabi lang, after dinner, ganyan. So, ganun doon nag-develop yung idea na yun. So, that's one output of this recommendation. Then, next. Si Doc Hazel, isa siya sa mga nakwentuhan ko about my experience after Typhoon Yolanda, and she was also able to watch the film, and because of that, ito yung output ng research niya. Aside from the manual guide, the video version of it is in tulaysenyas.com. So we hurriedly put up this website because of the ECQ also, because we felt the need na maghahanap ng tools, yung mga doktor, mga healthcare professionals, pag nagkaroon sila ng pasyente na deaf. So, the video is accessible on that site, Tulay Senyas, and even the manual guide, the handbook for effective medication for instruction delivery. So you can check it out. Next, please. 3, advocate for FSL insect and TV programs. So siguro napapansin nyo yung mga TV newscast, merong interpreter insect. So iba-iba lang nga yung size. Di ba? Merong malaki, may maliit, may kasing laki lang ng kuko. Kailangan mong kailangan pa ng pangtingin para maintindihan yung interpreter. But, we work with that. Ang stand ko, and at least most of the people I work with, is let's work with them instead of awayan sila. And dami kasing factors involved then in pursuing for this advocacy to add FSL inset to TV programs, especially the TV stations are also working on a skeletal workforce. So, konting TS, but we're pushing it. But this one that you're seeing, this is the after na. Meron tong before. Because when the ECQ was announced, hindi agad ganito eh. So, next slide, please. So, when the ECQ was announced, there were FSL interpreters, and there were groups of people. I was not part of it initially. I was also invited to be part of the core group. So they saw the impact, Imagine may announcement na ganyan kalaki yung magiging impact sa everyday lives natin. Tayo nga, alam natin yung news, sawang-sawa na tayo sa information. Pero ang dami pa rin gray areas about announcements, about guidelines, pwede ba lumabas, kailan pwede lumabas, an lang pwede pumunta, di ba? So imagine these groups of people, itong mga deaf, they don't know. They don't know. So, tong alliance, bigla lang siyang nabuo because of this same need or same desire to break barriers in information and healthcare and community services for the deaf community. So, next please. Okay, so what can you, pwede na, so, pag may problema, pwede kang magreklamo na magreklamo, and okay lang naman magreklamo, lalo na valid yon. But also, we're running against time, so we had to look for a solution, and we use technology and social media to bridge those barriers, to bridge those gaps. So we created this page, FSL Act for COVID-19, so that we can do newscasts and press briefings and public affairs with FSL interpreters. So it will bridge the communication gap. Next, please. So ito yung before. Kasi after na yung nakikita nyo na wow, nasa TV, ganyan. Before that, maski paps, no? Maski papano, sariling sikap, gawa tayong paraan. So itong sa left side, nung in-announce yun, talagang madalian na, o split screen gawin natin, may interpreter, para alam nung deaf kung ano nangyayari. They can watch it and look at it in Facebook. So behind that, aside from interpreters, we're producing like deaf news, meaning deaf talaga yung gumagawa, the reporters. And ito lang yung sitwasyon sa bahay. Using mobile data pa nga yan eh. Hindi naman kasing glamorous ng kunyari, Pio Ontiveros naman maganda pang background sa bahay. Walang ganon. Ganyan talaga. Like yung isa, wala naman siyang ilaw, lampshade na pwedeng gamitin. So outdoor siya, nagre-record ng video, si Romel, or itong setup, makita niyo yung setup dyan, ilaw yan ng CCO. Pero hinira muna dahil wala pa naman yung CCO. So sige, gamit tayo ng ilaw para mailawan kapag yung interpreter goes live, di ba? Streaming the news. So maski pops talaga, pero hindi pwede yung walang paraan. You have to find ways. Next, please. And then there's this, we have HAT or Healthcare Access Team for the Deaf. So yung Healthcare Access Team, that's the free online remote medical consultation with doctor and interpreter tandems. So they can consult online, telemedicine. Yan. So for 1 month, no, from April 6 to May 6, we have around 50 patients already. Actually, parang minsan tinest nga namin eh. Sabi nila parang mas responsive pa dito kaysa dun sa other mainstream online na mga telemedicine portals. And we've had inquiries as far as Africa, India. So there's really a need for this. No? It will break barriers for healthcare access for deaf people. And so next, please. So to also complement that, kasi mapapansin niyo yung advisories of Department of Health are in Tagalog. So hindi naintindihan ng mga deaf yun, di ba? They explained it nga. Pag written form, they want English. So we also transform that into infographics, so visual siya, and then in English. So ito yung sample ng mga infographics about important advisories and health information. So next, please. And then there's a community access team for the deaf or CAT for community needs. So yun na nga, palagi silang left behind. Hindi alam na may ganito palang hindi alam proseso sa SAP. So nabigyan na lahat, kahit priority dapat ng PWD, wala silang natanggap. So this is the portal for them to ask for help. And next, please. So like ito, babalik ako doon sa sinasabi ko na when we do things, may iba pasikat silang nakakagawa. But honestly, it doesn't work in real life eh. Kahit nga sa group works eh, sa group projects nyo. Diba pag may pastar, gusto niya siya lang ang grade. Pero hindi kasi ganun eh. You work as a group. Even as a healthcare worker, hindi pwedeng ikaw lang yung bida, ikaw yung nurse na magaling, ikaw yung doktor. You will always have to refer and work with other people. So in this case, for community access team, we tapped a volunteer group based in Cavite who's already providing relief packs for people there, and we asked them, can you also serve the deaf community there? So we bridged them, introduced them to the leaders of the deaf community in Cavite, and because of that, they were able to provide relief packs to deaf people who were left behind. Next, please. And the fourth recommendation is to adopt a community-based participatory approach in aid in healthcare. So all those themes that I showed to you, yung community access, yung healthcare access, and even FSL Act, the videos that you see there on our page are being edited by deaf people. So hindi sila yung receiving end lang na tagatanggap. If you invite them to help you, to be your colleagues, mas magiging effective yung delivery nyo eh. And like for example, also for Dr. Hazel's research output, the manual guide there was illustrated by a deaf artist. And you see that it's more effective kasi it was done in the perspective of a deaf person, and it was also we had field study for that, and deaf people were made to evaluate and see kung effective nga talaga yung manual guide. And next please. So siguro the lesson here is we have to look at the community as a deaf community as a resource and not as an obstacle. Kasi usually like ganun yung experience when we approach DSWD or city social worker department, talagang magtitinginan mula doon sa head and mula doon sa social worker, parang ay nako, ito na naman ano gagawin natin sa kanila. That's because they don't see deaf people as a resource. They're seen as problems, obstacles, diba? Dala-dalahin na mabigat. So that cannot be the case. They can change that perspective. And next please. Ayun na pala. So I mean, that's the lesson that would like to bring to the table, and I hope you learned something from it.
We are now done with the presentations of our guest speakers. We would like to express our gratitude to the guest speakers for sharing their knowledge and expertise on how to communicate properly with the deaf community. Now we will proceed to the open forum. If anyone has any questions, please leave it in the comments below. But for now, our moderators will narrate those questions that were sent to us beforehand by the viewers.
Question for Ms. Hara. What are the gaps that you have discovered in healthcare access for deaf people related to the After High-End documentary?
Yung as basic as, so may, I think hindi na siya naging part, well, nakita nyo na yung kwento ng mother, no, si Niola, na punta siya dun sa health center or dun sa, kasi like, ayun, yung impact sa akin ni Niola when I met her, that was after na of the psychosocial activity eh. So I met her at a cafe. Tapos, the following day, may flight na kami pa uwi to Manila. Tapos she was saying na, ayun the baby niya, merong sakit, may sipon, may ubo. Tapos sabi ko, gano'n nakatagal? Sabi niya 3 months since after Yolanda. That was February na. So parang sa akin, what? Baby, 3 months nang may ubo or may sipon. Baka hindi na okay yung baby, di ba? So, sabi ko, why don't you bring your baby to a doctor? And she said, well, una, sabi niya wala siyang pera. So sa akin parang, that's not a problem, especially now. You're in Tacloban, the hub of all the relief operations. So, actually, may notebook ako nun eh. Para sabi ko, eto punta ka dito. Kasi sa sentro ng Tacloban, lahat nandun. UNICEF, may mga tent. You won't miss it. Tapos sabi ko walang bayad, libre lahat yan, pati gamot. Tapos sabi niya, yeah, pero wala ako interpreter. So parang shucks, oo nga. Hindi ko naman siya pwede samahan because that was like 5-6 p.m. na. The following day, morning yung flight namin. So I wrote a script for her na like, hi, I'm deaf. My baby is sick with ganito, ganyan since last November. Please help me. So yun, so it's frustrating. Minsan hindi yung presence or absence ng healthcare worker yung problema. Is it accessible at all? So at that point, it was not accessible. So that was one gap. And that problem was replicated by others with interviewed. Like yung dalawa doon, yung isa sinabi niya gutom sila So yung pinsan niya, niluto na lang yung patay na kalabaw, kinain nila. So sumakit siya niya. So they went, asked for help. Nagpunta siya ng DSWD, mga libreng ganyan. Hindi siya naintindihan. So hindi rin natulungan. So sayang eh. Yung barrier talaga to access services ang problema. It's not presence absence. Kasi that's always what I get, the answer I get. Oo, meron na dyan. Oo, si ganitong international organization is there. But when you really look at, when you're on the ground, wala eh. They're not accessible. Yun yung issue. It's not accessible.
For the next question,
Thank you, Miss Hara.
For the next question, what could you suggest to the people in the medical field in order to improve handling or treating patients who are hard of hearing?
I think, Ariel, your mic is on mute.
Sorry. Okay. Hello po. This was sent by a viewer po. So, what could you suggest to the people in the medical field in order to improve handling or treating patients who are hard of hearing? To any of our panels po.
Raymond, from a deaf person's perspective.
Do you mean for access for the deaf? Or do you mean, is it for access or for communication?
Yes, for access and for the healthcare services provided to them.
I think it froze. So, sige po. One more time, please. Sorry kasi nag-freeze yung screen ko.
Ako po. Ako po ba?
Yes po. Raymond is asking to repeat the question.
Okay po. What could you suggest to the people in the medical field in order to improve handling or treating patients who are hard of hearing?
So I think best is yung access for communication. So what that means is interpreters, mas kailangan yan. Yung mga words, like for example, yung in-explain namin kanina, yung deaf awareness and sensitivity, I think that would help. So for example, yung mga medical words that would be difficult to understand for a deaf. So what do? May kasamang visual or may kasamang picture, and you show that together so that the deaf would easily understand and visualize it. And next, I think it's very important na, so I think basic the alphabet and numbers, that the healthcare providers should be knowledgeable. Kasi pag masyadong deep, syempre hindi nila maintindihan. Naglalag yung connection. We'll just connect my FB. Okay, so it's still slow. Okay. So yan nga yung visual scale that would really help. Yun yung may rating scale, yung 1 to 2 for 5 yung levels. Kasi syempre pagka may pain silang nararamdaman, hindi nila alam kung paano i-express yun. So it's better if you use those para mas magkaintindihan kayo ng deaf pagdating sa communication. So, kunyari yung naka-mask naman, syempre nakatakip din yung mga bibig niya for hard of hearing, they couldn't lip read, diba? So maybe you could, bring down your mask or something. So I think those are my suggestions.
Okay. Thank you po.
Hi po, we have another question po. Kahit sino na lang po sa panel. In your opinion, do you think hospital needs to require all their personnel to learn the basic FSL?
Sir Raymond wants to say something. So yung kanina nga, going back, yung story about dun sa Typhoon Yolanda. So I have also experienced that kasi I think, so after 1 week, I went there, dun sa Leyte. I think si Noel, yung girl.
Yola, Yola.
Yeah, so I think ayun nga, I heard about her problem, tapos yun nga, kailangan niya ng medicine for her baby. And then I actually tried to help her and I actually brought her to the doctor pero stuck nga kami kasi ang haba ng pila. Tapos yung concerns parang walang priority, ganyan, kasi sa sobrang haba ng pila. So that's what we experienced before. Ayun, so difficult nga kasi dala-dala niya yung baby. So yung doctor naman syempre nagpapanik na rin sa sobrang busy. Of course, we understand kasi ang dami emergency yon, tapos madali kaming iset aside kasi wala ding pera for medicine to pay for the medicine of her baby. So I understand it's difficult also. Pero yan, so yung iba naman na traumatized din. So paano din tutulungan? So yung parang hindi rin nag-intindihan kung paano tutulungan yung isa't isa. So what works well is yeah. So yun nga, pictures would work. So with that we could just point it at mas mabilis. Okay, third. So another deaf. Yung older deaf, I don't know the name. Yan, so I also met with them, tapos yung word naman, pinakita niya, sabi niya hindi niya daw maintindihan yun, and then he showed it to me. So tinulungan, so parang please help me, ganun, kasi wala naman tumutulong sa akin, sabi niya. Yeah, so sorry kasi the screen is freezing on both ends, but they have to manage. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay. Next question po. Do you think deaf people can have a career in healthcare setting? And if so, anong mga area po sa hospital can they fit to work?
So, do I answer? Okay, sige. Ayan, so of course, sa deaf can, pwede naman sila magkaroon ng career sa hospital. They can learn how to.
Mm-hmm.
So, merong isang deaf, I think from Bacolod. From Bacolod, yes. Tapos may isang deaf doon na gusto niya matutunan kung paano mag-work sa clinic. Tapos inalam niya yung process, kung paano yung nag-training siya under doon sa nurse. And then after doon, so yes, yun nga yung deaf, nag-undergo siya ng training, and then later on, gusto niya makapasok doon sa center na yun para matulong, kaso hindi siya na-accept ng time na yun. So syempre, nakaka-frustrate din yun para sa aming deaf. Pero dito sa Philippines, meron, I think one hard of hearing, animal clinic, animal center. So I think merong hard of hearing na nagwo-work sa isang animal clinic. So hindi ko lang maalala yung pangalan. In the US, as a UK, so in UK, meron doon na doctor na deaf na nag-work as a doctor, nurse also meron. Midwife also meron din. Dentist, meron ding deaf worker doon. That's it.
Okay, thank you po. Sa iba pong speakers po, may gusto po ba kayong i-add?
Yes. Sige, Noemi.
I think the first step there, and Raymond will know this, the first challenge there is yung curriculum ba for whatever healthcare course is available in FSL. Kasi even like itong COVID situation, the first thing that the deaf science team had to do, and the sign linguist, Dr. Liza Martinez, is to coin FSL signs for words commonly used for COVID. For example, ano ba FSL ng COVID-19? Di ba? Ano yung FSL ng symptoms of COVID-19? So, to compare that, imagine if you're, kunyari, nurse ka, tapos gusto mo mag-work sa Japan or Korea, and then ang requirement nila doon is the books that you have to review, and then when you take the exam there to get a license as a nurse or as a pharmacist or whatever profession in the healthcare profession is in Korean or in Japanese. So, syempre, malamang babagsak ka kung hindi ka marunong ng Korean or ng Japanese, tapos evaluate ka based on that language. So, ibig sabihin, accessibility pa rin. Kasi it will never happen that a deaf person can take a course for a healthcare service provider if the curriculum is not in a language that they understand. That's one of the barriers that we have to work on. Hazel.
Yes, so ako i-add ko lang dun sa question kanina, should we require healthcare professional, say in the hospital setting, to train FSL? Based on the FSL law, yung pinakita ko kanina dun sa presentation ko, which is Section 8, yes, there is a requirement na kailangan magkaroon ng accessible means yung mga deaf patient natin to communicate with the healthcare provider. Now, there are ongoing trainings. Noemi can actually add to this na meron silang training na ginagawa sa medical doctors hospital. Most of their healthcare workers there are already undergoing FSL training. And kagaya nung nabanggit ko kanina, mas maganda kung dun pa lang during the undergrad, mga students pa lang in pharmacy, in nursing, and other allied health professional, dun pa lang natututunan na natin yung basic. Para dun mismo sa healthcare setting, pag nag-work na tayo on the field, hindi na tayo nangangapa or kinakabahan kapag nakaka-encounter tayo ng mga deaf patients.
So, Sir Gats po, I would like to ask a question.
Sorry, Raymond would like to add something.
Okay, sure.
Okay, so I just thought of this. My sister, she works in New Zealand, sorry. She works in New Zealand. Sa government office doon, and they have access, they are required to learn sign language, to learn basic sign language. Yun, so that's why my sister knows how to use basic sign language kasi required sila doon. Also, all hospitals, all clinics, the government, the president required them to learn basic sign language. Kaya yung sister ko nag-aral siya ng sign language doon. So I hope it's the same here in the Philippines na ganun din yung mangyari. Kasi may FSL law naman and so we could always look to that. Kahit basic training lang, I think that would suffice. Yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, excuse me. For me, my question is for Doc Hazel. And my question is, we as being educators in the health professions, what do you think should we tweak as in our curriculum when it comes to teaching students not develop an inclusive attitude towards those who had hard of hearing?
Mm-mm. Sige. Ako, I would like to siguro give give an example in the case of pharmacy. In the course of my research, kailangan i-identify muna natin what subject kaya dun sa ating curriculum or what course in our curriculum fit yung pag-i-introduce ng FSL training. So halimbawa sa amin, meron kaming courses na drug delivery system, patient counseling. So doon natin gagawa ng paraan na maybe i-insert natin doon yung training. Meron din naman yung mga co-curricular activity ng mga student organization. Pwede nating isingit doon yung pagkakaroon ng FSL training or seminar kahit ilang oras lang. Mga ganong strategy.
Okay, some sort of like an elective subject.
Yes, Doc.
Okay. I agree. Thank you.
For our final question, any speaker can answer this po. How can you incorporate technology to help improve communication with the deaf community? Anyone po? So again, my question po is, how can you incorporate technology to help improve communication with the deaf community?
Is it dito sa atin, no, sa Philippines?
Opo.
Yeah, so you mean technology, right? Okay.
Yes po.
Okay. So here in the Philippines kasi sobrang kulang, sobrang lack ng access for technologies, pagdating sa for the deaf community. Pero now, doon na nag-start yung COVID, nag-start din yung sa news na, yung news nga na team with Miss Noemi. So I hope doon na mag-start na mag-improve yung access. Kasi dito sa Philippines, sobrang kulang talaga niyan. So in Japan, because I think 4 years ago, I've been there. Around 5 years ago, nagpunta ako dun sa Japan. And I became sick. So I was wondering, how do I communicate? Pero meron silang mga resources. They have complete resources. Para so nakita ko, wow, okay to So, may mga sign language pa doon. Tapos parang nag-match talaga siya doon sa communication. So, I hope magkaroon din ng ganong kind of access dito sa. And also, I hope that I can encourage every one of you, dun mga future doctors, future nurses, na kung yung mag-subscribe din kayo dun sa video chat, dun sa healthcare access team. I hope Doc Hazel in the future and Miss Noemi could prepare for this kind of partnership in the future. So we just hope.
Thank you, Ma'am Nikan, Sir Raymond.
So I have a final question po. This will be the last question for our open forum today. To Sir Raymond, what do you wish that other people could understand about your experience?
Can you, for the interpreter, can you please go back to the question?
Sorry. What do you wish that other person could understand about the experience or his experience?
Okay, so for the hearing people, I hope mas maging aware kayo about sa deaf. It's very important na you at least try to communicate. And I understand na maraming hearing people pag deaf hindi alam yung gagawin, na-awkward or natatakot na ibibigyan ng pity yung deaf or maaawa sa deaf. Pero communication is a really good way to bridge that gap. So you can do writing, you can learn signs, you can do gestures para mas maging aware din, mas maging aware yung hearing community. So I hope yun yung goal, yun yung target.
Thank you po.
If there are no more questions, I would like to ask the speakers if they would have anything else to add.
Ako na muna. As final words siguro sa akin, I would like to thank you for organizing this type of webinar. Dr. Ryan Gatbonton, thank you kasi ito palang initiative na ginawa ninyo. Napakalaking tulong na to para sa deaf community. And I hope na hindi ito yung last. Sana in the future, pag na-lift na yung ECQ, pag okay na lahat ng situation natin sa COVID crisis, makapag-organize din kayo ng face-to-face FSL training sa mga students ninyo in Chinese General Hospital. So thank you. Thank you for inviting us.
Thank you also.
Ms. Hara, would you like to say something po?
Yes. So thanks for the opportunity also. It's like planting seeds so we never know what can happen because while we were doing the film after Haiyan, we never imagined, we just had high hopes na, ay nako, sana ma-solve tong gap na to. We never knew that these projects will materialize, like the manual guide that Dr. Hazel was doing, that it will bring people together and open their minds. That's the first step So, and it's good that especially you're a young audience kasi mas madaling turuan, mas open pa to learning. Hindi naman sa pero minsan pag medyo older doctor na, siguro kasi specialist na or marami nang alam, parang nahihirapan sila talaga even in FSL workshops. Talagang ang hirap turuan pag gano'n. Pero pag mga young participants, talaga ang bilis nila matuto, very innovative, yun, technology. Like, we had participants na ophthalmologists, talagang napawaw kami kasi biglang naglabas siya ng cellphone, tapos pinakita niyang gano'n, check niya yung eyes ng deaf, may pinapakita siyang app ganyan to check kung ano yung grado ng mata ng ano. So there are so many ways we can do and find solutions to the issues, and I hope you you have that in your heart and remember this experience. And minsan kahit hindi mo alam ang gagawin, if your heart is open, you'll find the answers to what you need So there, I hope it helps.
Finally, Sir Raymond po, if you would like to add something.
Okay, so I also want to thank everyone for inviting us here, for connecting with us. It's very important yung inclusion. Inclusion is really very important, especially yung FSL. We don't discriminate against the deaf community, against deaf persons. So, and also to other disabilities then. I hope we continue to respect one another. And I hope that you will be more aware kung paano makipag-communicate and how to provide access for the deaf. So, thank you so much. Thank you for coordinating with us in this project.
Thank you.
Everyone, thank you for attending and for the speakers for being our guests today. I would like to call on Ariel Chua for the closing remarks.
So, on behalf of our batch, we would like to extend our utmost gratitude to our resource speakers, Dr. Catublas, Ms. Hara, and Mr. Manding, for sharing their time and expertise with us, for answering the queries and further enlightening us regarding the topic. We would also like to thank Ms. Mika Kamba for being here with us. Through this webinar, we have gained more knowledge and understanding on communicating effectively with the deaf community. We hope that this will drive us to advocate for the improvement of healthcare services in the clinical setting and in the community. As we reach the end of our session, we would like again to thank our speakers for their invaluable contribution to this webinar. We extend our thanks to our seminar organization advisor, Ms. Juliet Limhoco, as well as our Level 4 advisor, Mr. Ryan Regat Punton, for guiding us throughout the planning process and for helping us make this undertaking a reality. And of course, our webinar wouldn't have been a success without our participants. We would like to thank you for your presence and support. We hope that you will be able to utilize the knowledge you have obtained today in your daily lives. So with this, I greet everyone a blessed afternoon and may God bless us all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Bago po tayo umalis, group picture muna tayo. Layo tayo. Group picture. Okay, screenshot na lang po. 1, 2, 3. One more. All right. Sige po. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you po.